Okay, dear innovators, dear practitioners and decision makers, I'm humbled to be here on this stage today. Thank you. A friend told me the same thing as Jostein just said last week, that my title, it is on par with accounting systems selling accounting in the cloud. So it doesn't trigger any emotions whatsoever. So I just want to skip this slide as quick as possible. We are quite good at many things in businesses today. For instance, we are very good at restructuring value chains to product quality. We can improve step by step. And we even are quite good at the lean programs. But when it comes to innovation, the gap between aspiration and achievement has never been greater. And I guess that's the reason we're all gathered in this conference. But there are no lack of initiatives, though. We have accelerators, we have incubators, we have labs, we have hackathons, and we have awards. We have many, many awards. And we have a lot of money, and there are tons of best practices. So the number of 3 steps and 5 steps and 7 steps to success is everywhere. And not only do we have sweet linear steps, they're also easy. But recipes are dangerous. All your role models, they were rebels. You know that. But that is because rule breaking creates positive change. So we need to divert our thinking. So if you actually want to help India, you have to ask yourself, how can I destroy India? And all the things that successful startups do, that's in these books, guess what? All the unsuccessful entrepreneurs read the same shit. So imitation simply won't work. So at the end of the day, everyone has the playbook. They have the tool set, and they have the innovation process. And by now, we are so good doing the process that it has become innovation itself. So what we have lost sight on, that is actually how we enable progress for people. So to me, it seems like it's time to approach innovation in a new way. Is it finally time for people, the outside-in perspective? For the old logic is taken from the business perspective. So it's all about the demand for efficiency and cost reduction and increased revenue and ROI, all parameters looking inward. But the new logic, that goes beyond. It takes a starting point at the individual and the situation that surrounds the individual, his dreams and his struggles. And that is quite different than to look at what you have and how we can sell it. So there was this McKinsey study a couple of years ago, and they asked the participants, it was just like you, they had roles like you, and 84% said that innovation was critical for business in terms of growth, and 6% was satisfied with the results. So it seems that they found out that we literally have no idea what the problem is, and we don't know what it takes to succeed. And a vast majority, they mixed correlation with causality. But even a broken clock is right twice a day. So we interchangeably, we use these words complex and complicated, and I think that's part of the problem, because I have the same experience, and it just gets bigger and bigger the more we talk about and use data. We don't see the difference between correlation and causation. So in a complicated system, as this car engine, output is predictable. A car engine is Greek to me, and those that know me can sign on that. But I know it is designed to be predictable, because it is from the industrial age, and there is one right answer. So complicated problems, they have linear cause and effect. And I can identify which cause that actually gives the specific effect. And there is a relation between the input and the output. And maybe most important of all, and that is if you have this personality type that you like to be in control, you can actually be in charge of what interactions you can have. You can get the output that you would like. So for control freaks, this is fantastic. So let's compare it to a complex system. So here there are no cause and effect, and obviously the output is unpredictable, because the results from networks of many interacting causes, They cannot be individually distinguished. So I hope this illustrates that it is quite misguided to use like a case-based approach from someone else's success, because you cannot control this. So it's not fun to be in this management team because you never know who owns the problem. And what is a complex problem? Yeah, so organizations and people and projects are all complex. It is the real world. And as we all know, we know that small inputs can have disproportionate effects. During this talk, one of you guys will get a call where some kid fell off their bike or what have you, and all the rest of the day is living as a consequence of that small little event. And if you try to intervene, well, every time you solve a problem, you create a new problem. And for me, I'm working in this bank trying to influence decision makers at small businesses. And these guys are jack of all trades, so they might, in the best case maybe, they start off Monday morning with this beautiful little schedule for the week, but when they sit down on Friday evening with a glass of wine, maybe they did 30% at best of what is here. So we have to constantly be moving. So what this is actually a tension on the left-hand side between experts, and on the right-hand side, experimentation. So if you have expertise, but you're not willing to experiment, well, then you have become predictable. You have become boring, and you have become less useful. Because you cannot use linear frameworks like design thinking and its knowledge funnel, because when you are in a complex problem, there are not even a problem to solve. You have to dance with it, you have to play along. If the kids get sick, it gets sick. So you just have to be part of it. You cannot distance yourself from it. So if I use the metaphor from a children's party, let's say you host a birthday party for your kid, and I offer like a board game, and it proves to be somehow successful, I will introduce another board game. But if it's not successful, if they start to fight, then I pull them back. So like, oh, good, then I did manage the situation. But the problem is that next time you have a party, you don't know if you can use what you just learned, because the impact of the board game is part of a system. So even though it worked for Lise's 5-year-old birthday, it doesn't necessarily work for Terje's 8-year-old's birthday. You constantly have to be on. So much for business as usual. So let me talk about the playbook that was landing in my lap as I joined the startup Aprila. For something like this. The founding partners looked me deep in the eyes. I guess they wanted me to remember what they were saying, and I sure do. Because my job was to realize the iPhone moment for banking, and I had to remember to go mobile first. Well, what could possibly be better than actually try to imitate the manifestation of a great product experience? And what could possibly be smarter than to start by dictating the channel? What we ended up to deliver was actually this. This is our MVP. So this is a good old checkbox in a desktop application for accounting. And this little checkbox enables you to get cash immediately. So instead of sending your invoice, you can sell it to me, and I will provide cash instantly and wait for the money to be paid. And I know a lot of UX people here is like grinning, because it looks pretty crap. But I would say, for me, this is probably one of the best parts of our MVP. But I would rather talk about failure, because that is so much more interesting. Because failure repeats all the time. Success rarely does. But we still try to copy success. But what actually is repeating itself is failures. So our product is nicely, smoothly integrating in existing workflows, because we wanted to introduce as little change as possible, because change is cost. So our product, it is both real-time, and it's seamless, and it's digital, and it's flexible, and it's dynamic, and it's easy. But still, in all our eagerness to deliver, we lost sight of an important failure, or learning, if you like, that many has done before us. and that is that people don't buy my product. They try to switch from the situation they are currently in. And I knew this. I was aware of the dangers. Still, it did happen. So this picture pretty much sums up how I felt going to FinTech conferences for a couple of years. So I was working at the future of to understand the future of banking, as Jostein said. So it was quite a few conferences there. And you could see the techies and the financial guys, they were head over heels in love. Because finally the bankers could get smooth UX, because that is something the bankers understand, right? UX, they're so good at it. And they could get the flaming logos, and they could get the spinning logos, and those nice, beautiful graphs that told how much money or how little money you had at each point of time. And finally, the techies, they could code from scratch instead of drowning in their technical debt. So there was simply not enough oxygen left in the room for people, the demand side of the equation. So that's the reason this became my screensaver image, and it's a decent icebreaker from time to time. But don't get me wrong, I'm not an enemy of technology. Recharging my car in 6 minutes, it's absolutely fantastic. But efficiency innovations that is delivered inside a closed, complicated system is something very different from dealing with people. So what my founding partners should have told me, they should have told me that the challenge for me was to change behavior, not imitate the iPhone moment. Because someone's need just won't cut it. I like to argue that to stay alive is a bigger need than the funding gap in the SME. But people ain't rational. So when seatbelts came, we had it behind our back because we didn't want to use it, we just want to get rid of the sound. So when people started to give fines, we actually started to use the seatbelt properly. And we didn't quit smoking until it got illegal at bars. And we spent fortunes on information campaigns, but the brain doesn't take decisions made on logic, based on logic, but on emotions. And at Aprila, we are a bank that takes pride in data and machine learning and rational decision making, but we cannot change the fact that it's never just one thing that causes something to happen. So if I want to tap into business owners' life, I have to understand their emotional bank account. I need to skip this. I think this is quite shocking. Most startups fail due to no market need. That is extraordinary. So did these guys go about with no data about the target market? Of course not, but surveys don't work. It's that easy. And if you increase the sample size, your crap questions doesn't get any better. And we lie all the time, subconsciously, if that is a comfort. So we need to understand how people make decisions instead of asking what they want. So I think new logic pays less attention to the customer, the persona. It boils down to a person without a soul, and it boils down to an average, a person with one breast and one testicle. It simply doesn't work. And I think new logic pays less attention to customer needs, because need is simply a necessity. It's a hygiene factor, and it's not something you can work with as an innovator. And I also think you should spend less time on the ideal user experience, because there simply aren't any ideal user experience. I have asked many people about the last purchase. And this consultant, he said he bought a bun. And he didn't know how much it cost. But when I asked him why he bought it, it started to get interesting. Because he wanted the ability to concentrate with me, because he thought I was demanding. Nudge, nudge. But at least he wanted to stay professional. So we started to dig into his identity and his values. And that is passive data, it's context data. So if you want to win big on data, you need to find a way in so you actually get access to the most valuable part of the data. So the customer is the wrong unit of analysis. We should rather focus on situation and context. Find out how people make choices, because it takes a lot to switch. The brain hates choices. And in terms of trade-offs, IKEA is the best example, because no one has a need to go to IKEA on a Friday night, shop, drive illegally on the way back with the trunk open, gracefully open the manual, start to assemble. But we all do it because we do trade-offs all the time. And that's why choices are the ultimate power. And before they kick me out, I just want to conclude with a little suggestion for you guys, and that is that you break the pattern, you break the old logic, and that is that you learn the difference between complex and complicated systems, and that you shift focus from customer and needs to context, situation, and trade-offs. Thank you.